Um, so we'll do the 220, 230 review. I'll start off by just saying what's kind of new. For 220 or 230, it really doesn't like both sections, you have the same test. And you only have that one test in the next week. Um, the main things that are different is that you're going to have the heparin bolus and infusion calculations as well as a nitro drip question. And so we'll talk about those specifically. And everything else should be a review of what you've already previously seen. But obviously, practice is what's going to ultimately help you out tremendously. Um, Amber, I did get your email, and then I just wasn't sure which class you were in. But I can go right to those questions real quick just to make sure I have them or can get you answers since you asked that already. I think you said question 21. Just want to make sure it's the same question. Would it be this question here? I'll double check my. Check my email. Oh, there you are. Okay. So I think we're on the right track. So I see that you're unmuted, Amber, but I don't hear anything, so I don't know if you're.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
That's okay.
here.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
it's it's the one with the I just lost it. It has the it's like the units and it's a box and we have to here 21 um 350,000 units and
Okay.
it's like 18.2, 250,000. It was
Okay.
the orientation one.
Okay. The reconstitution questions. So
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So for that one, you just choose the strongest concentration. You ignore the milliliters of diluted added. That just tells you what the pharmacy's adding to get to the concentration that's listed in the right column. So, like if the order is 350,000 units, you just divide by a million units per milliliter, and then you get an answer of 0.35.
Is the highest number always the the one I should choose?
If
Is
it,
that mhm.
yeah, so it has to tell you like to choose the greatest concentration. So if it tells you to choose the greatest concentration, then yeah, you use the biggest number. If it told you to choose the lowest, then you would choose the smaller number. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at least from because I made those questions a long time ago, and I just added in like choose the greatest concentration. That should be fine. Technically, without that direction, you could have three different answers depending on which concentration you chose. So, it should indicate to choose the strongest concentration, which is going to be the greatest number, the highest number.
Good. Thank you for
You're
clear.
welcome. And then the other one was for the heparin question, right?
Yes, it was
Okay,
number 25.
part
C
C.
two. That was my other one.
Okay. So I think I answered this last time. And I did I left this blank because I was letting you guys, and I'm gonna work through a couple more of these. I'm gonna do some of the truncated versions down here.
Okay.
Okay, but let's look at this. So, um, for this, so those of you like that are like, wait, where are we jumping to? I'm going to go through another example of this in just a little bit. But what we're doing, what we're looking at here, and like I said, you won't see this question on your test on Monday, because I don't think that they're going to ask you to go and look at the second part of the protocol there or the other deeper parts of the protocol. They're just going to ask you to calculate it. So let me just back up a little bit and just explain for those of you who are new what I'm talking about with this protocol thing. So you may have seen this question, and let me just zoom out a little bit so you can kind of see like um that there is a lot to this question.
The screen's not sharing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me know. All right. Should be sharing now because let me just double check. Okay. So you should see the heparin protocol, and the heparin protocol um basically has a whole bunch of stuff written here that can be a little bit overwhelming and daunting until I explain a couple of things. So first of all, everything that you're seeing here that's numbered, like 1 through 15, that's just like it's what's posted on the wall, and it's saying we follow this protocol. Okay. There's a couple blanks in here. You do not need to answer the blanks. In fact, the question itself tells you to answer the questions below the protocol. And then it does say that the protocol is everything below here. What I should have done when I originally made this is I should have like created like a box or a shaded box around this so that way it was a little bit more clear that this was a protocol that you're kind of using it to kind of get information. It's kind of like a big label, and you're just trying to decipher the information in it. The questions that it's going to ask you on your test next week is it's going to ask you to calculate a bolus dose, and it's going to ask you to calculate an infusion rate. Okay. So you're going to have to answer two questions, but it only counts as one question for this type of question. Okay. The one question encompasses answering a bolus and infusion rate using the heparin protocol. And then if you miss one or both of those questions, you've only missed one question. Okay. So sometimes I get asked that question. It's like, well, what if I miss two? What does that mean? It means you've missed that one question. But after I show you how to do this, you won't miss it. Okay. So that's the protocol, what it looks like. I shorthanded the protocols. And so it looks more like this. And this is what I'm hoping doesn't apply to you, but maybe next semester, but I doubt it because no one ever asked me to update these things anymore. But this would be an example of like a shortened version. Notice that I've given you all the information you need from the weight-based protocol, and it just simplified it. So this is a good practice to kind of go off of. Okay. Anyways, so when you see this, I highlighted what's important. You're going to take the patient's weight. If it's in pounds, you need to convert it to kilograms. Step two in the protocol tells you what you have available. You have an IV that contains 25,000 units and 250 milliliter half normal saline, and you have a bolus dose of 1,000 units per milliliter. So you need the bolus dose available to calculate the bolus dosage, and then you need the IV in order to calculate the infusion rate. At the beginning of like the introduction to the question, it tells you what to do, it tells you the order, and that order is repeated in the protocol as well. It just says the bolus with 80 units per kilogram, and then start with a drip at 18 units per kilogram per hour. And like I said, I'm going to work through another example of this. I just wanted to show you what the big protocol looked like, and then to come back and answer Amber's question. So I gave you three, technically four questions on this one question just for practice. You are going to get A and B on your test. You're not going to get C. But if you did get C, I'm going to, it all C is telling us is after 6 hours, we reassess the patient and we look at the APTT and it tells us new information of what to do. For it tells us here to rebolus with 40 units per kilogram, which I worked through the last time on or yesterday. And then it says to increase the rate by 2 units per kilogram per hour. The original rate was 18. We increase by two and we get to 20. And then I didn't work this out just because I wanted to let students kind of work it out on themselves on their own. But I'm going to work it out now. So we're still talking about the same patient. The patient weighs 70.9 kilograms. Instead of multiplying by 18 units per kilogram, we're going to multiply by 20. Actually, now that I think about it, I think I did work this out. So we get rid of kilograms. And again, we don't want units per hour, which is what we're currently in. We want milliliters per hour. So I want to get rid of units in exchange for milliliters. And then my IV tells me I have 25,000 units, 250 ml. So I'm canceling out units. Before I do any math, I'm left with milliliters per hour, which is exactly what I want because that's what it tells me to calculate. The only trick here is that you need to know what to do with that 20 units. You need to increase it. And like I said, I'm going to work through another scenario. So if you're sitting there going like, what in the world is he talking about? I just was doing this because Amber asked before the class started. Um, so I'm just going to take the 70.9 times 20 times 250 divided by 25,000. And then you should get an answer of 14.2 milliliters per hour. Is that what you're getting, Amber, or did you get something different?
I got 21.
Okay. So what number did you use differently than I used?
I used um I used a whole different method of I think I set it up wrong. I didn't put the 250 milliliters and the 2500 units in. I just stopped there and then thought that was the answer.
Okay.
Mhm.
So let's do a fresh one. Um, because just for extra practice and and we'll do another scenario that's very similar to this, and then that way we can kind of catch whatever whatever happened like as far as that because that's a big discrepancy, right? Because the answer is 14.2, somehow you got 21, and let's just we'll take a step back, we'll look at a fresh one and then kind of see what we can find out from there. Before I do that, I'm going to zoom back in. I want to just mention something here. So, like, there's a couple of these questions that you'll see that are, I call them workup questions for the heparin protocol. This is just how we go. These questions that are here are also technically heparin infusion questions. And what they're asking you is they're asking you to convert units per hour to milliliters per hour, which is exactly what you're doing in the heparin protocol question. Okay. So units per hour, converting that to milliliters per hour. So what am I going to do with this? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my units per hour, 8,000 units per hour, and I'm going to convert it to milliliters per hour. And I'm going to do so using my IV, which contains 500 milliliters and 20,000 units. So when I'm setting this up, in case you haven't been practicing these yet, I'm going to take my 8,000 units per hour. And again, I don't want units per hour. I want milliliters per hour. So I need to find, or I need to check to see that I have a way to connect units and milliliters. And that's actually what the IV allows me to do. Because this is all in one IV bag, 500 milliliters of the 0.45% normal saline, 20,000 units. And then I'm just going to match the numbers with the unit that it goes with. So 500 for the milliliters, 20,000 for the units. And then before I do anything, I'm already in the correct arrangement, milliliters per hour. So I just got to plug it into my calculator. So I'm going to take my 8,000 times 500 divided by 20,000, which is going to give me an answer of 200 milliliters per hour. Are there any questions on that type of problem? Okay. And I gave some additional like kind of practice so you can work through some of these as well. Um like and I probably have worked through or I've asked, but I want to try and because it takes me a little while to go through the heparin protocol. I just want to make sure I go through one. You're going to do the same thing with insulin. So an insulin infusion conversion units per hour to milliliters per hour is the same thing as a heparin infusion conversion units per hour to milliliters per hour. There's no difference. It's just you're going to set it up exactly the same way, and it's just a matter of practice. If you are doing something completely different than I am, as long as you're getting the same answer, you're doing it right. That's really what it comes down to. If you do it three times and two out of three times you get it right and one out of three times you get it wrong, then figure out what it is that you're doing differently in that one time and make sure you don't do that, or make sure you're consistently getting it right. And if you do it three times and you get three different answers, then we need to have a conversation because you're picking and choosing numbers. And I'm trying to show you not to pick and choose numbers. I'm trying to show you that take the flow rate to start, convert it using the IV information as you're available, and then get the new flow rate. If you're able to kind of follow what I did there, even if you're not, um, you don't like to use dimensional analysis, if you at least start setting some of these problems up to kind of help you out, I think it'll save you some time and headaches if these are the types of questions that you tend to miss. All right. So let me go back to um, our infusion rate, or I'm sorry, our heparin protocol. So what I'm going to do is I am going to just save these here because you're going to see what's written up here on your test. So let me just go through and just what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually change the weight and then we'll go through the protocol fresh. So I always tell students the only thing that really changes on this is the patient's weight. Everything else is pretty much the same. So it's not like you're going to see something different. You could technically see something different, but I don't think you're going to. Just give me a second while I clear some room here. Sorry about this. I forgot that when I cleared this all out before, um, I didn't save it, and so um, it just went right back to where it was. And anyways, so I'm going to try and make this make sense, and then hopefully this will help to answer Amber's question too, just to make sure we're all on the same page, so we're not guessing or using the wrong numbers for whatever reason. And it happens. That's why I do these reviews. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna change the patient's weight to let's just do 174 pounds. Okay. So everything's the same. We're going to, when we do the protocol, the first step is just to understand what is this thing asking. So the thing it's asking is what you want to answer the questions that are below the protocol. What are the questions below the protocol? The questions are what's, calculate the ml for the bolus and then calculate the infusion rate. Don't worry about part C just yet, but on your test, you're going to see AB. Okay. That's how it's going to be written out. I doubt you're going to see C, but we'll work through it. That way you can at least get an example of what that looks like. So they want you to calculate a bolus and they want you to calculate an infusion rate. The other thing that I'll mention is that you'll see it says drip because it does drip out, but they're not asking you to calculate a drop rate. Okay. They're asking you to calculate the milliliters per hour. And you know that because it says so right there. Okay. So I know I'm repeating myself from what we talked about earlier, but I think repetition is key. But I wanted to reiterate a couple things. When we're looking at the protocol, this is what it looks like. The order of things that you're supposed to do for this particular protocol. We just care about the weight-based medication delivery aspect of this. We don't care about the CBC or the GAIA stool or the neurochecks. You don't need to fill that in. They're not even going to check it. They're looking at, can you answer these questions? Okay. So if you've memorized what these are, then great. You're welcome to write them in. They're not going to look at it. Okay. What they're going to look at is what ml do you get for the bolus? What milliliter per hour you get for the infusion rate. So it tells me first and foremost that my order is to start a bolus of 18 units per kilogram and then to start an infusion at 18 units per kilogram per hour. So we're going to talk about that. Anytime you see kilograms and then you have pounds listed here, that's your indication that you need to convert that to kilograms. So step one for me is I'm going to take 174 divided by 2.2. I'm going to get 79.090909 repeating, and we're just going to round that to 79.1 kilograms. All right. So the first thing I need to do when I'm calculating for the bolus is I need to take the patient's weight. This instance, we're going with 79.1 kilograms. And I need to multiply by the order, which tells me 80 units per kilogram. What this does is if I multiply this, I'm going to get a unit answer. Okay. So in the past, I've answered this as equals how many units. Um, the other way that I can do this is I could just continue the dimensional analysis, um, which is usually what I do when I just plug it into my calculator. Um, and so I will just go ahead and answer this for the units just so you can kind of see where we get for this. So I'm going to take that 79.1 times 80, and I'm going to get 6,328 units. And that's what my bolus dose is. It's 6,328 units. But the question is, how many milliliters? Okay. So I need to know how to convert via my available units to milliliters. So we look at step two of the protocol, and it tells me we have 25,000 units in 250 milliliters, half normal saline, which is your IV. And then it tells me we have a bolus dose strength of 1,000 units per milliliter. If we're calculating for the bolus dose, then we're going to use the bolus dose strength available. So it's 1,000 units per milliliter. And so all I'm going to do is make that conversion. So you can do order of available if you want for this. I just write this out here so I can kind of just keep it organized in what I prefer. So 1 milliliter, 1,000 units. And I'm going to get an answer of 6.328 milliliters, which is the same thing as and then we would round to the nearest tenth for a final answer of 6.3 milliliters. Are there any questions on how I got to 6.3 milliliters? And again, if there are questions, please stop me and let me know. So those of you, if you came in or you're jumping into this recording and you're like, wait, these numbers seem different. I changed the patient's weight to give us a different scenario because that's really all that's going to change on your test is how much the patient weighs, as long as it's still, if it follows this protocol, which if you do a Google search for heparin protocol, this is what pops up. This is actually where I got it from.
Can I
All
ask
right.
just one question?
Yeah.
So say the answer was 6.378. Would you round that to 6.4 then?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So you always, when you're doing your rounding, always look at the hundredths place. And then, so if it's five or greater, round up. If it's four or fewer, leave it alone. So
Sure.
don't
All
round it.
right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, what's important is that we don't have those extra numbers afterwards. So yeah, but round up if it's five or greater, four or fewer, don't round up, just drop those numbers. Good question. All right. For the infusion rate. So remember it told us, and if you need to see it again, it told us that we're going to start an infusion or drip at 18 units per kilogram per hour. So that kilogram tells me that I need to account for the patient's weight again. So I'm going to start off with my 79.1 kilograms, and I'm going to multiply by the 18 units per kilogram hour. So what I'm going to do is eliminate kilograms. And then when I do this, and I'm setting this equal to, I'm going to get units per hour. And units per hour is what you saw in the previous infusion questions. And all we're doing is converting, after we account for the patient's weight, converting units per hour to milliliters per hour. So I'm going to take the 79.1 times 18. I'm going to get 1,423.8. And that's units per hour. Now, again, I don't want units per hour. I want ml per hour. So my question is, how do I go from units to milliliters? And I'm going to do the same way as you've always taught. It's just that they're asking you to kind of interpret the data a little bit differently. So we only want to use the bolus dose for bolus information. We want to use our IV for um, any of our infusion questions. So the 25,000 units, 250 ml, that's what we want to use for when we're calculating our infusion rate. So I'm going to put the 250 ml and the 25,000 units. Before I do anything, I always like to cross out and just make sure I'm in the units I'm looking for. And I'm in mil per hour. And then I'm just going to run that calculation. And I'm going to get an answer of 14.2 ml per hour. Any questions or confusion or clarification for how we got to that? Now, I did round my answer, right? So it was 14.238 mil per hour, and then I rounded it to 14.2. Um, just to jump ahead, if it was 14.268, then I would round it to 14.3. Um, as long as I'm rounding it to the nearest tenth, I'm doing that right. All right. So that's how you would calculate your bolus dose and your infusion rate for the heparin protocol question. And like I said, you're on your test. You'll see these two things. You'll see the part A and B, and that's going to equal one question. So if you miss A and get B right, you miss the question. If you miss A but get B right, you miss the question. If you miss them both, you missed one question. Okay. But you're not going to miss this. All right. For if they ask you this, which I don't think that they will, but if they were to ask you, they would only ask you this part. So you wouldn't do A, B, and C. But they could just ask you, they've been on this patient's been on this protocol. After 6 hours, they reassess, they take an APTT, and they see that it's 43 seconds. So that's where you go into like the boxed portion of the protocol, and you'll see a couple things. It'll say if APTT is less than 35, if it's between 36 and 44, if it's between 45 and 75. Those are the things that you're paying attention to when it asks you, okay, it says it's 43 seconds. So we're going to pay attention to this part of the protocol. So we're going to look at number 12. And number 12 tells us to bolus again, 40 units, and then to increase our infusion rate by 2. And this is where I had initially had like like on the side. So our initial infusion rate was 18. And then we're asking you to increase it by 2. And so we're just going to add those two up. And then my new infusion rate will be the 20 units per kilogram per hour. So the pertinent information for this is we're going to rebolus with 40 units per kilogram. Okay. And my available is 1,000 units per kilogram. Or I'm sorry, units per milliliter. So this is my order. This is my available. And then the patient weight is still the same. It's still that 79.1. So go ahead and use that information, and just I want to see that you can get to the same bolus information that I got to using those three pieces of information. So 79.1 kilograms is what the patient weighs. The order is 40 units per kilogram. The available is 1,000 units per milliliter. So tell me how many milliliters you would calculate for the new bolus. And you can just type it into the chat once you get an answer. I just want to make sure you can do it. Lauren, did you already answer the second part of this as well? Okay. If you want to get ahead, you can. Your answer is correct. I just want to make sure others are looking at this and are working towards, because I want to know if you're not getting the 3.2 milliliters. And then I'm gonna have you go through a full protocol and then make sure you know. I also want to know if you don't know what's going on. And then you could just send a direct message and just be like, I don't know. All right, so let's go ahead and work through this. For those of you still going through it, we have 79.1 kilograms as our patient's weight, multiplying by the new bolus information, so 40 units per kilogram. And then I can answer that, but I'm just going to put in the next conversion. So 1 milliliter, 1,000 units. And then um, you're going to get 168. Let me just double check here what I got. Oh, 3.164 milliliters. And then we're going to round that to 3.2 milliliters. Again, you don't have to set this up the way I'm setting it up. I just do that because visually it gives us a little bit of structure. Okay, or at least gives me a little bit of structure. So yeah, so we're gonna rebolus with 3.2 milliliters, which is half of the 6.3 milliliters that we got before. This also answers the question what Dino was asking about with the rounding, so you can see what that looks like when we round to the nearest tenth as well. We round up in that scenario. For this one here, and then you're probably right there, Lauren. Let me just double check, and then I'll give you guys the pertinent information in case you're like, what is going on here? Yeah, you're right, 15.8. Okay, so the pertinent information here is we have the order is the 20 units per kilogram per hour. The available is the 250 ml per 25,000 units of heparin. And the weight is the 79.1 kilograms. So again, for this one, we're going to take the patient's weight times the 20 units. Remember, the 20 came from we were initially at 18, and then the protocol told us to increase it by 2. So I'm just doing 18 plus 2 to get to 20. And then I'm just going to continue with my conversion. You can hit equal and then do the seconds. There's no one specific way that you have to do this. As long as we're all getting the same answer, that's really what it comes down to. 250 ml, 25,000 units. So units cancel. Before I do any math, I'm in the correct mil per hour. And then I get 15 point, I think it's 15.82 milliliters per hour. And then we're going to round that to the nearest tenth, which is 15.8 milliliters per hour. So it's not a mistake when they tell you that it's the drip rate, right? Because this is a tablespoon of liquid infusing every hour. So think about how slow that's going to just get a tablespoon to drip out over an hour. All right. So let me give you another one to practice. This one's just a little bit more simplified. So go ahead and take some time. I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit more. So for this patient, this is a 165-pound patient. The order is 80 units per kilogram. So it's the same. Started infusion rate at 18 units per kilogram per hour. You have 25,000 units in 250 ml half normal saline. You have a bolus dose of 1,000 units per milliliter. And so the question is to calculate the bolus and then to calculate the infusion rate. So go ahead and practice this one. And then just write your answer in the chat once you get it. And then for both. So just go ahead and calculate both and then write both answers together once you have them both ready to go. And if you have no clue, just let me know that as well. Because I want to make sure you're good on this. Okay. Amber, I had a question. Was what when you got an answer of 21, because you're doing these right, I'm actually wondering if the discrepancy is that we might be talking about different patient weights. Do you do you recall what your patient weight was for your answer of 21?
50 kilograms.
Okay, yeah. So we were doing two completely different questions, which is why the answers were different. So if you recall, I was doing 70.9 kilograms for a different weight patient. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's probably right because
Mhm.
I'm all over with I'm like kind of scattered with the papers.
Okay. All right. Well, no, that makes me because I was like, you're getting these right, so I know that you know what you're doing. And so, because I was like, what's going on here? And I forgot to even just ask because, like I said, I've changed the patient's weights a variety of different times throughout these reviews that I don't remember what the original one was, which I think is 110 pounds, which would be the 50 kg, which is probably what you were working off of. And then I had changed all the numbers, and so we weren't even talking the same question essentially. So, okay, I feel hopefully you feel better too, knowing that that's most likely what the issue was because
I
you're
do.
getting these right. So,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for asking and thank you for giving me like that clarification there. So, all right. So for any perfect, you guys are nailing it. So 6 mil and 13.5 mil. So I want to share with you the shorthand way because when I do these questions, I'm done in it takes me about, I don't know, 30 seconds to answer these questions. And this is why. So I take the 165 pounds, I divide by 2.2, and then I had it written down and then I lost it. So 165 divided by 2.2 is 75 kilograms. So when I'm calculating the bolus dose, all I do is I do 75 times 80 divided by 1,000, and then I get 6 ml. When I do the infusion rate, I take 75 times 18 divided by 100, and I get 13.5 ml per hour. This is the shorthand way of doing the bolus and the infusion rate in the event that as long as it's the same available and the same order, which it should be, that's the shorthand way of doing that. The longhand way, which is the way that you should be doing it, just to make sure, just in case they were to ask you different ways, is you would take the 75 kilograms times the 80 units per kilogram and then times the 1 mil per 1,000 units to get your 6 milliliters. But all I did was 75 times 80 divided by 1,000. I just simplified it because I know that that's what that is for this particular problem. Okay. As long as you're getting the same answer, which it looks like a lot of you are, you're doing it the right way. Because I know you hate writing all these units that are here, including units called units. But if you write it enough times, you start to get in the habit of making sure or that you it just comes right off the cuff. So 250 over 25,000, that relationship is 1 over 100. So that's just where that comes from. It gets reduced. So that's where I got that answer from. So if you're using this as a shorthand for when you're doing your standard weight-based protocol, you can use that as a quick check if if you're doing these practicing these and you're doing like a different weight, so you're using your weight or a significant other's weight, mom's weight, dad's weight, kid's weight, just make sure it's like an adult kid. um then you can just convert that weight from pounds to kilograms and then solve, and then if you want verification you can email me and I'll tell you, yeah, that's correct or that's incorrect. So
So I have a questions.
yes.
So once you do the like 75, the sort way 75 times 80 by 1,000, we have a 1,000 unit. We can see that, but the sort unit on the B, when you do the 75 times 18 by 100, is any number we can put always 100 on that?
Yeah, for as long as it's like, so what that's based off of is this, 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 and this. As long as those are all the same, that's what that's based off of. So like if, and like I said, if you were to do like an ATI question and they gave you different bolus and different availables, then this wouldn't work, the shorthand. But most likely you're gonna, this is the type of question you're gonna see. So the shorthand will work.
So on our test next Monday, will be the same available like 25,000 unit, 2,000 ml, and then 1,000 unit?
It should be, yeah.
Okay, then I think the short form is pretty easy, so we cannot mess the number. I
Yeah.
love the short way.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, just I show you because like I show you the long way just because you never know. You never know who's going to change the test. And so I just want to make sure you know how to do it either way. So,
Okay, but I love the short way.
oh
No
yeah, no,
confuse.
me too. So, all right. Well, if you have any other additional questions, please feel free to email me. Um, between now and Monday, if you need to meet with me again, I have some times available throughout the week. I have some time tomorrow. I have some time on Friday, might have some time on Thursday. Just email me and let me know if you just have a few questions that I can answer via email. That's probably what I'll end up doing. And then I will upload this onto to YouTube later on tonight. And if I don't hear from you, good luck on your test.
So how many question will be on the test? 20 or 25?
25. Yeah, you'll have 25 questions, just like your 110 and your 130 test. And then you can miss two. If you miss more than two, they're going to ask you to, or you're going to have to remediate and retake the test. But I don't think you're going to have that problem.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Rad, quick question.
Yeah.
So, in addition to the IV heparin bolus question, everything else from 110 and 130 still the same?
For the most part, yeah. So like you're gonna have the same types of those types of questions where you're doing your metric to metric and your metric or your household to metric conversions, converting pounds to kilograms, doing your oral and your parenteral medication calculations. So a lot of that stuff is repeated. And then like if you can go through the practice set and then be able to answer those questions without issue, then you should be good to go for the test.
And these are on Blackboard, right?
I don't know how they give you the uh your practice set, so I don't know if they gave you like a printout at the end of last semester, or if they put it on Blackboard. I'm not sure. What I'm working off of is coming from the shared OneDrive folder that I created for you guys. Um, and if you don't have that link, it should be with the link that you got to go to connect to Zoom. If you don't have that link, just email me and I'll make sure you get it.
Okay, thank you. Because I don't have any of that.
Okay.
I never do.
Okay. Sorry. If it helps, it's the same as it was last semester and for 110. It's always the same. I always try and keep the links all the same. So, yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And you're welcome, everyone. Thanks for saying thank you.